that as I spend time studying it, I just hunger to be able to have a moment to sit beside David and just ask him, what is it that's taken your heart to this place and giving you this sense of victory? What is it that you're reflecting on? What is it that you've been through that brings you to this kind of maturity in the Lord and gives you the victory enough to be able to share in such passion? How has the Lord built you up? What is in your background that helps us to understand all these years later just how passionate this walk with the Lord is for you? Is it a journey you've had with Saul when he was running around behind you and trying to take your life? I mean, that's enough. Is it your approach going into your kingship after you were king, when you were on the battlefield and dealing with these pagan nations that the Lord wanted you to deal with? Is it the episodes you might have had with your own son, Absalom, who tried to take your throne, ran you out of the city? All of that you're going through. What are you feeling when you pen these powerful words? Because there's something just rich about this and all the songs, but this just is a rich one. So let me go to my 3 life lessons here as we focus in on 3 promises in the time of peril. And the 3 promises from the perspective of the language in the text deals with a promise that impacts your past, a promise that impacts your present, and a promise that impacts your future. All right. Here's how the writer says it. Verse 1 says, let me go to the Amplified. If it had not been the Lord who was on our side, now may Israel say, if it had not been the Lord who was on our side, when men rose up against us, then they would have quickly swallowed us up alive when their wrath was kindled against us. Then the waters would have overwhelmed us and swept us away. The torrent would have gone over us. Then the proud waters would have gone over us. Like lesson 1, if you jotted, I've got 3. Our faith has increased as we reflect on God's presence, power, and protection during uncontrollable danger. Let me say that slow. Our faith has increased as we reflect on God's presence, power, and protection during our uncontrollable danger. Be grateful. Be grateful is going to be our theme. Here the writer takes us out into his history. He's thinking back on the journey that's gone over, the things that he's been struggling with in his walk in the past, the times when it felt like his situation was absolutely out of control, that he knew that he couldn't handle his own business. He might have had some forces around him, he might have had some victories in his past, but he's recognizing and seeing that in and of his own strength, he didn't solve his problems in and of his own strength. He didn't have the might to be able to handle it in and of his own strength. No matter what he did, it wasn't in his capability to handle his situations by himself. He needed the Lord on his side. And as he reflects back over this journey, and he thinks about his circumstances, those times when the enemy was encamped all around him and it felt like it was just more than he could possibly have handled by himself, he puts it in this dramatic language. He says if the enemy had basically had their will, they would have quickly just destroyed me. They would have just gobbled me up. They wouldn't have taken their time and nibbled on me. They wouldn't have tried to destroy me bit by bit, or go after my character and then go after my background and then go after my associates. They would have just destroyed me instantaneously, because that was the mindset of the enemy as they camped all around me. And then he gives us another visual, if you will. He says the enemy's rage and desire to destroy was kind of like waters that were overflowing. You could feel the tide rising around you. You could sense that not only was there danger, but there was danger that I could not control. It was just, am I talking to somebody today? He says, I just need you to think, as I reflect back on it, not only did I see their intent to gobble me and kill me instantly and destroy the mission God has for me, but I could see the mounting. I could see the water level of danger and evil beginning to just rise up all around me. It was like I could see the floods coming, but I could do nothing about it. I pushed back against water, but it didn't make any difference. To the point that it actually gave me the appearance that it could flood over me and destroy me. Anybody had any of those kind of moments? Anybody walked any of this kind of journey that David talks about? His might have felt like the battlefield, but it really was personal. You ever had situations that you see mounting dangers coming at you? Folk that are trying to build cases against you? I need to talk to somebody. Who can I talk to over here? If your life has just been smooth and rosy, then you don't need to amen any of this. Just listen and pray for the other folk who got some stuff going on in their lives. But if you lived any time at all, if you had any circumstances going in your life, if you bumped up against any of the difficulties, the hardships, the stuff that the enemy would have going on in your life, then you recognize how the plan and purpose of the one who's trying to short-circuit your walk with the Lord, your plan, God's plan for your life, has a tendency to feel like it's just rising. You can see it coming. And as much as you want to stop it in its tracks, you feel a sense of being powerless against it. Now that can have one or two impacts on you. It can send you into a sense of isolation and feeling a total sense of helplessness, and therein you just kind of shrink away and stop doing what God wants you to do. Or it can bring you to the point where you just lean on God. You call on God. You trust in Him like you've never trusted before. You lean on Him like you've never leaned on Him before. And you trust in who He is and His faithfulness. And so David tells us that as I look back over my journey, I've noticed that these moments when my circumstances seem overwhelming, all out of my control, I just couldn't handle it by myself, tended to be the moments of some of my greatest growth spiritually. Come on, Ray. Can I talk to somebody? Because I recognized and realized that it was not based on my intellect, not based on my strength, not based on my emotional makeup, that I'm standing here today. As I look back over my history, David would say, I'm realizing that there was a hand greater than mine that was directing my path and guarding and protecting me in the midst of my journey. As I look back over my journey, David said, I can realize that if it had not been, come on, Ray. Now I'm getting happy. Come on, man. For the Lord on my side, then this thing would have turned out totally different. We wouldn't be talking about this today. Might not even be breathing today if the enemy had his. Anybody know something about that? So David takes us and says, number one, we need to recognize that God's promise to the believer is, regardless of what your circumstances look like, regardless of how overwhelming life feels and looks to you at any given moment in time, God's promise to the believer is He's on your side. Yes. And when God is on your side, come on now. Don't make me start hooping on my first point. When God is on your side, even the Torah